Oh, let's go back a little bit. My dear friends, Nick said mournfully, welcome, welcome, so pleased you could come. He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white translucent people, mostly drifting around a crowded dance floor, waltzing to the dreadful, quavering sound of 30 musical saws, played by an orchestra on a raised, black-draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in a mist before them. It was like stepping into a freezer. Shall we have a look around? Harry suggested, wanting to warm up his feet. Careful not to walk through any of the ghosts, said Ron. They won't like it. They passed groups of party goers talking and chatting. Harry wasn't surprised to see lots of them talking to each other and saw a slithering ghost covered in silver stains being given a wide berth by lots of the other ghosts. Oh no, said Hermione, stopping abruptly. Turn back, I don't want to talk to Moaning Myrtle. Who? Said Harry as they backtracked quickly. She's the ghost who haunts one of the girls' toilets in the bathroom on the first floor. She haunts a toilet? Yes, said Hermione. It's been out of order all year because she keeps having tantrums and flooding the place. I never went in there anywhere if I could avoid it. It's awful trying to have a pee with her wailing at you. Oh, look, food, said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached eagerly, but stopped in their tracks, horrified. The smell was disgusting. Large, rotten fish laid on handsome silver platters, cakes burned charcoal black were heaped on slavers, and there was a big slab of cheese covered in furry green mould, and in the middle an enormous grey cake in the shape of a tombstone with the words Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Poppington, died 31st of October 1492. Harry watched amazed as a portly ghost approached the table, crouched low and walked through it, his mouth held wide open so that he passed through one of the stinking fish. Can you taste it if you walk through it? Said Harry asked him. Almost, said the ghost sadly, and he drifted away. I expect they've let it rot to give it a stronger flavour, said Hermione knowledgeably. Can we move? I feel a bit sick, said Ron. They had barely turned around when a little man swooped suddenly from under the table and came to a halt in the mid-air before them. Hello, Peeves, said Harry cautiously. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peeves the poltergeist was the very reverse of pale and transparent. He was wearing a bright orange party hat, a revolving bow tie, and a broad grin on his wicked face. Nibbles, he said, offering them a bowl of peanuts covered in fungus. No, thanks, said Hermione. Heard you were talking about poor Myrtle, said Peeves. Rude you was about poor Myrtle. He took a deep breath and bellowed, Oi, Myrtle! Oh no, Peeves, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset. Hermione whispered frantically, I didn't mean it. I don't mind. Oh, hello, Myrtle. The squat ghost of a girl had glided over. She was the gloomiest face Harry had ever seen, half hidden in lank hair behind thick pearly spectacles. What? She said sulkily. How are you, Myrtle? Said Hermione in a falsy bright tone. It's nice to see you out of the toilet. Myrtle sniffed. Miss Granger was just talking about you, said Peeves slyly in Myrtle's ear. I was just saying how nice you look tonight, said Hermione, glaring at Peeves. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. You're making fun of me, she said, silver tears welling rapidly in her small see-through eyes. No, honestly, didn't I just say how nice Myrtle was looking, said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully in the ribs. Oh yeah, she did. Don't lie to me, Myrtle gasped, tears flooding. Do you think I don't know that people call me behind my back? Miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle. Oh dear, said Hermione sadly. Just then, Nick drifted over towards them through the crowd. Enjoying yourself? Oh yes, they fibbed. Not a bad turnout, said Nick proudly. The wailing widow came all the way up from Kent. It's nearly time for my speech. I better go and warn the orchestra. The orchestra, however, stopped playing at the very moment. They and everyone else in the dungeon fell silent, looking around in excitement as a hunting horn sounded. "Oh, here we go," said Nick bitterly. Through the dungeon wall burst a dozen ghosts, each ridden by a horseman. The assembly clapped. Harry clapped too, but stopped quickly at the sight of Nick's face. Nick wants to be a horseman too, but he can't. Remember? They said that he couldn't join them. The horses galloped into the middle of the dance floor and halted, rearing and plunging. At the front of the pack was a large ghost who held his bearded head and was blowing the horn. The ghost leapt down and strode over to Nick. "Nick, how are you? Still hanging in there?" He gave a guffaw and clapped Nick on the shoulder. "Welcome, Patrick," said Nick stiffly. "Livens," said Sir Patrick, spotting Harry, Ron and Hermione and giving a huge fake jump of astonishment. "Don't mind Nick," shouted Sir Patrick, still upset we won't let him join the hunt. "If I could have everyone's attention," said Nick, "it is time for my speech. My late lamented lords and ladies and gentlemen, it is my great sorrow," but nobody heard much, because the hunt was just playing a game, and it was taking up too much of the noise. Harry was very cold by now, not to mention hungry. "I can't stand much more of this," Ron muttered. "Let's go," said Harry. They backed towards the door, nodding and beaming at anyone that looked their way. "Pudding might not be finished at the feast," said Ron hopefully. And then, just as they were leaving, Harry heard it. A voice in his head, the same cold voice he had heard in Lockhart's office. He stumbled to a halt, clutching at the stone wall. "Harry, what are you... It's that voice again." "Listen," said Harry urgently, and Ron and Hermione froze, watching him. The voice was growing fainter. Harry was sure it was moving away, moving upwards. A mixture of fear and excitement gripped him as he stared at the long ceiling. How could it be moving upwards? Was it a ghost? "This way," he shouted, and they began to run up the stairs, up to the entrance hall. It was no good hoping to hear anything here. The babble of the Halloween feast was echoing out of the great hall. "Harry, what are we..." "Shh," he said. Harry strained his ears. Distantly from the floor above, he could hear the voice. "Oh no, it's going to get someone," he said. They ignored Ron and Hermione's bewildering faces. They ran up the next flight of stairs, three at a time, trying to listen to his own pounding footsteps. Over his own pounding footsteps. Harry hurtled around the whole of the second floor, Ron and Hermione panting beside him, not stopping until they turned a corner into the last deserted passage. "Harry, what was that all about?" But Hermione gave a sudden gasp, pointing at the corner. "Look!" Something was shining on the wall ahead. They approached slowly, squinting through the darkness. Foot-high words had been daubed on the wall, and it said, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." "What's that thing hanging underneath?" said Ron. As they edged nearer, Harry almost slipped. There was a large puddle of water. Ron and Hermione grabbed him and they inched towards the message, eyes fixed on the black shadow. All three of them realized what it was at once. It was the caretaker's cat. She was shocked and completely still. But they said, "Quick, we shouldn't get caught here," but it was too late. A rumble as though of distant thunder told them that the feast had just ended. From either end of the corridor where they stood came the sounds of hundreds of feet climbing the stairs, the loud, happy talk of well-fed people. Next moment, the students were crashing into the passage from both sides. The chatter, the bustle, the noise died suddenly as people spotted Harry, Ron and Hermione standing alone with the frozen cat. Then someone shouted, "Oh my goodness, Enemies of the air, beware, you'll be next, mudbloods. It was Draco Malfoy. He had pushed to the front of the crowd, his eyes alive, his usually bloodless face flushed as he grinned at the sight of the frozen cat. Wow, that's an interesting thing. The poor cat's totally frozen. Oh, the next chapter is chapter 9. It's called The Writing on the Wall. So they must be about the writing that they just saw at the frozen cat. We will find out more about that next time. Good night.